Jiwan, Mike, thanks so much for joining us coming off of CREFC. I was looking forward to connecting with y'all here.
Yeah, thanks for having us. If Andy Garrett is planning something, I'm joining, so I'm here for you.
Always a party. Well, you two are some of my favorite people at SitusAMC, so I've been looking forward to this conversation here. Look, CREFC was nuts. It was so many people, so crowded. It feels like every year that conference keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Curious what the two of you all thought. Gee, what'd you take? What was your takeaway? Kind of big overall impressions.
So I always feel really anxious on Monday morning because you're waiting to see how big the crowd is going to get in between the lows and Rayos, because you never really know. Because of course, registration is not really indicative of the number of participants, and I was really pleasantly surprised. There were so many participants and really new issuers, new entrants into the market. There were investors in the audience. There were third-party groups that could assist all of these lenders. So overall, it was very, very exciting. And I think that since COVID, that was probably the highest attendance that I actually felt and saw.
That's awesome to hear. Mike, what'd you think? You've done a couple of these CREFCs.
Yeah, for well over a decade. This seems to be the busiest, but also the most exciting, the most positive that I've been to in years. Obviously, we had some really good years in the last 10 years. We've had some bad years, but this one just felt the best, if that makes any sense. It was crowded, but in a good way. The conversations were all really, really good. As G mentioned, the infamous fountain in between the lows and Rayos was jam-packed.
Yes, it always. My first CREFC experience ever, I was blown away getting there and looking out at that fountain in the pool area, and it's just a sea of like navy blue and white. It's pretty unbelievable to actually see if you're not used to it. But no, it's kudos to the CREFC team, I think, for continuing to turn this into such a premier conference over the course of the year. I imagine everyone from New York is loving coming down to Miami, getting out of the cold, although this year's weather was like questionable.
Yeah, except we didn't have good weather this year, Miami.
Soggy. So
and the gentlemen are stepping up their fashion game a little bit. There wasn't all navy blue. I would say 98% navy blue, but I saw a few greens. I saw a few pink jackets in the mix. So some folks trying to differentiate themselves from the crowd of blue jackets.
I like that. Well, kudos to the outliers then for stepping up the game for all of us. I like that. So, okay. So, obviously expectations, you're talking a little bit about like the night before and stuff like that, before CREFC starts. But before you guys got here, I'm curious, right? What were you expecting to kind of hear and what surprised you throughout the course of the conference?
I'll just say expectations were, we didn't know how busy it was going to really be, but we had high expectations because of all the meetings that the team pre-booked going down there. Like Wednesday or Thursday before, we had 130 plus meetings pre-booked to meet with folks over Sunday afternoon, Monday and Tuesday. And then we added a bunch more, over the weekend. And just seeing that, you knew that there was going to be some excitement. It was a little bit different than the conferences in the past.
G, what about you? What kind of expectations versus reality?
So based on our conversations with potential clients and existing clients, I knew there were quite a number of new entrants into the market because of so many, the investor appetite for bonds and also the back leverage has really been growing the market. But it wasn't until I could see all of the meetings that we were having, as Mike mentioned, and also speaking to all the participants, it was definitely a little bit more enthusiastic than what I was expecting.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. I know it sounds like, especially when there's new blood too that's there, right? And kind of new entrants that are coming in there. I think it changes dynamics and it gives the opportunity where just like, look, like people are jumping into this thing because there is opportunity there. So that's good. Was there a moment, on whether it's a panel and a hallway conversation where you thought like, okay, yes, like this is different. This is unique. This is, 2026 versus 2025. Like this is a new theme or a new idea that we're going forward with.
I think for me, it was the combination of meetings that we had with balance sheet lenders, banks in particular, that seem to be excited about the year to come. Because in years past, like CMBS has been active. The private credit folks, we've been talking about that for a few years. Debt funds have been active, but the banks seem to have been sitting on the sidelines for direct lending. Like they're lending in other ways, but the few meetings that we had with true balance sheet banks and seeing how excited they were about 2026, like that was for me the moment. It's like, wow, everyone is really excited about this year.
That's huge. G, were you picking up on that kind of same excited sentiment and overall feeling?
I definitely felt the excitement. However, I also felt the urgency because of the number of participants and the number that there's just a lot more competition in the market. And so I also felt this sense of having to capture market share as quickly as possible. So speed of execution, and also making sure that they have sufficient support to, review deals very quickly, close transactions. I also love the fact that Chris Voss, one of my favorite authors of Never Split the Difference, started the conference because it really set the stage of, okay, this is going to be a big push, a big tough year. So, I mean, tough year meaning people are going to have to get aggressive in order to really make a presence this year.
Well, I know that was one of the challenges last year. There's a lot of capital on the sidelines, a lot of liquidity out there, dry powder, and there weren't just enough deals to support all of that. And it sounds like more entrants into the marketplace. I assume more capital is coming in because of that. So it sounds like, a lot of excitement, a lot of opportunity, but a busy, crowded market where differentiation is going to be super, super key.
Yeah, that what you just said actually is the only little bit of cautious, like the little bit of cautious thoughts that I had walking away from the conference. Not to be a party pooper, like I hope everyone has a fantastic 2026. But after a few meetings of people saying, we just raised $1 billion that we have to put to work, and another one said we have $2 billion that we have to lend by the end of the year. A little bit of me was thinking, where are all these deals? Like, where are the deals coming from, and how fast are, like, so to G's point, people are going to have to be very aggressive in looking at deals, underwriting them, and actually like activating those deals. But at some point, people are going to take on a little bit more risk. I think, like, you have to get a little bit more risky. And what is that going to look like? We'll see.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And Jay, are you hearing from clients just in terms of like how they're thinking about differentiation, how they're thinking about kind of setting themselves apart a little bit?
So some of the common themes that I heard in meetings was really about overlaying AI into everything that they do to actually have a competitive edge against their peers. Of course, everybody is looking into AI. However, that seems to be a very high focus and a priority for 2026. On the special servicing side, there was also conversations all really centered around transparency. So that was a very interesting discussion. And with execution, we were having various conversations of we just can't do it internally because there's just too much for us to do, which is puts Situs in a really great position.
Yeah, absolutely. No, because that ability to come in and kind of partner support as they look to scale, as they look to kind of pursue things that either might be outside of their wheelhouse of expertise, or just they need more help on to get done, I think is huge. Mike, are you hearing similar stuff just from clients, like in terms of like where they're focused and challenges?
Well, just to piggyback on what G was saying, like, I'm really excited to see where AI takes us next year, the year after, et cetera. But if you just think about 2 years ago and even last year, how far AI has come, in our personal lives and our professional lives, and it's just getting better and better and better. And it's there, there's going to be some winners in the AI space over the next year, and I'm just excited to see what that looks like and how we could take advantage. But it's also contradictory to one of the themes which G mentioned is transparency. It's hard to be transparent when you're using AI because you don't really know exactly what's going on behind the curtain. But with putting that aside, AI is going to definitely continue to revolutionize this industry, and I'm excited to see what that looks like.
So I am now old in the industry because some of my colleagues had their sons at the conference, and they're the next generation. And I had a conversation with a student looking to get into commercial real estate, and I said, I'm really excited because how you're going to do business is going to be completely different from how we did business. I don't know how that's going to be transformed, but it'll be exciting to see.
Did you all get the sense that people are starting to wrap their heads around how AI can kind of plug into their businesses? Like, rather than it's just the AI buzz and excitement about it, the actual practical application, practical usage, real focused, use cases.
Yeah, there's just so many components of our industry that AI could play a role, and people. I think that the winners are going to be the ones that kind of dissect it and apply it simply to fix individual problems, rather than just trying to use AI holistically, because that's where I think you could get into a little bit of trouble. But it seems like most folks are looking to solve again those really small problems, and if you do it effectively across many of those processes, then you solved a big problem.
Gee, were you getting that same sense from your conversations too, that people are starting to kind of wrap their heads around the real practical application?
Well, yes, but the divergence in thought was what I found interesting, is that some individuals think if AI can't produce 100% accuracy, then it's useless. Whereas there's another camp of individuals that basically say, if you can get me 80% there, and then the humans can figure out the balance 20%, then that will be efficient. And it's just interesting, because I find that if you can get 80% there and have the human component figure out the last 20%, then that's phenomenal. It's a huge lift, but it is interesting that people have different sentiments of how AI can be productive and actually useful.
Yeah, it's a good point. And I came from a world, I was at a startup for a little while where we used AI, and we would be super excited for getting like 90-something% accuracy.
That's huge accuracy.
Yeah, and then you'd show that to someone, they would say, well, why isn't it 100%?
Yeah.
It's like, well, humans they're not 100% accurate as well, but like you got to think about it as that 90% accuracy is taking a big lift off of the human, that allows them to do other things that are more important, and then they could focus and still try to close that gap. But like, yeah, that's a really good point. 80 to 90% accuracy is very accurate.
That's highly accurate. It's probably more accurate than humans in many instances.
Yeah, and look, it's a solid GPA at the end of the day. You take it back to like our university college years. Are you happy with like a 92 in a course, and only had to study maybe for 2 hours for it, versus 100 and had to study for weeks and weeks and weeks on end to get there? That delta, it's a value proposition at the end of the day. So I think that's cool. That's interesting. So it sounds like a ton of offense, right? A lot of opportunity, ton of excitement, a lot of capital, a lot of new entrants, a lot of all good things. But what about kind of risk exposure? What did you all hear just in terms of maturation of debt, kind of these like debt walls that are coming up? What are people talking about from that perspective? Gee, what did you hear?
So in previous CREFC conferences, especially in 2024 and 2025, it really was, most clients were spending probably about 25-30% of their book was being modified and extended, and it was very painfully so. I think that most groups felt very optimistic and felt that their portfolio was actually positioned in a very good manner. And I heard more positive stories of foreclosing an asset, taking it over, the market actually being pretty solid, and lenders being very positive that they were going to make a positive return because they foreclosed on the asset. And the sentiment that I heard was that lenders aren't really as they're not as concerned about the maturity wall. I think it creates opportunity for them to modify, recapitalize, and refinance.
It's interesting. And that feels like it's a shift from maybe the conversation again last year, some of the news headlines of like this looming maturity wall, pending apocalypse kind of thing. So that's great to hear that the sentiment shift, and even structurally some shift around that. Mike, you hearing the same thing?
Yeah, I mean, they have experience with walls of maturity, right? We've been talking about a or several walls of maturity since 2015, 2016,
Mike,
right?
I think that wall of maturity is just rolling into the next year.
Yeah, it's a wall on wheels,
Yeah, so I think that the lenders have experience with this wall that just keeps coming. And I didn't hear, to G's point, I didn't hear a lot of like angst when talking to anyone about any loans that are coming up for refinance or renewal. The only negative theme, and this is like me really, really searching, but it did come up in a few conversations. The only negative theme that came up in a few conversations was fraud in multifamily. And we heard about that a little bit at a conference in December that a few of us were at, and it came up again in a few meetings here where that's that's the issue that some lender, like especially the large multifamily lenders, are trying to wrap their heads around is to mitigate and hopefully eliminate the fraud involved in these huge multifamily deals. In particular, the same day closes where I can't get into the details because I don't know exactly how it works, but something along the lines of, they close on a loan for $50 million in the morning, and then they close on that, they refinance and close on a $75 million loan that afternoon on the same property, and nothing effectively changed. The title company probably has to be involved with that. Again, I don't know all the particulars, but it came up in a lot of meetings, and that was sort of the only really negative theme that I heard more than once.
And is it a sense that fraud is on the rise, or a sense that we're just identifying it more?
That actually came up in one of the meetings. Someone said, are we better at our jobs now that we're finding this fraud? Or are people getting better at these, at defrauding, right? So who knows?
I think it's probably a combination of both.
Yeah.
Right. Are we sicker, or are we just better at WebMD these days? Kind of thing too. So I'm curious about interest rates. It felt like last year, and for the last couple of years, interest rate has been so fundamental to the CRE conversation. Was interest rate a big topic this year? And if so, like what were y'all hearing from clients and kind of where they think it is, where they think it's going, how they think it might impact their business?
I didn't really hear that much.
I didn't hear much about it in any meeting.
No, because interest rates have been declining, and of course CRE is very sensitive to interest rates, but we've seen the trend, and most are anticipating that we will stay at a steady pace, or rates will continue to decline, which will only help the industry. But that wasn't a primary focus of conversations.
Yes, which is actually kind of interesting, because I imagine it then shifts the focus as a differentiator, being less about kind of markets that you can't control, but more around the strategy and the approach and the differentiation that a firm can take. To that end, how do you all, are there certain aspects of firms or certain types of firms that you all think are really well positioned with where we are in the cycle, or where we're going in the cycle?
Yeah, so I think that the lenders that are highly diversified and have more than one product, they will be very well positioned, because the market shifts, as we've seen in previous years, it can change on a dime. And so any lender that just has one product out in the market will struggle. Having various products offered to their clients and diversification, I think, is really key.
Mike, similar thought on your end, diversified portfolios, diversified approach, who do you think's poised to win as we move forward here?
Yeah, I agree with that. Diversified portfolios in a sense of property type, geography, right? Like you don't want to have all your eggs in one basket, which seems obvious, except we see folks get in trouble with that time and time again. And I think having diverse teams too, right? Like there are. I'm going to give us a shameless plug here. Like I love Kurt Spa's description of why our special servicing team is so good, and it's because it's really diverse. It's made up of folks that grew up in the industry during various different really bad times, which is actually good for special servicing. But I think that goes to show. I mean, that same theme works for diversified lenders as well, right? Like folks that didn't didn't come up in the industry in the last 5 years and only saw like positive deals, and have like a really, really deep bench. I think those folks are going to be able to apply that knowledge to making, like as we were discussing earlier, there's a lot of capital that's being deployed right now, and people are going to have to quickly make decisions. The folks that have the deepest bench, I think, are going to be able to effectively make those decisions and get themselves into good deals, while some others may be, like a little bit behind.
Yeah, I like that. So, G, from your perspective, diversification of portfolio. Mike, from yours, kind of diversity of perspective and experience from a team,
Sure.
which makes a ton of sense, right? It's like, take all that experience, take all that wealth, take all the knowledge that's been built up, and apply that broadly to essentially diversify risk a little bit as well. And
I also think not just diversify portfolios, but it's diversify strategies. Like, the lenders that have a fixed rate product that's shorter term, a longer term fixed rate product, a floating rate product, construction lending, back leverage. If you can have all of those, tools, then whatever is in favor will keep the lenders active in the market.
Yeah, makes total sense. I love that. So if you all had to think about kind of big picture then, right? One takeaway from the conference that you think anyone that's in this space should be really focused on or acting on, what would that be? Mike, I'm not sure if you want to kick us off there.
That's a hard one. I would just, it's being that everyone is so excited. I would, I would just hope that everyone is going about it the right way, right? Like, I don't want to be having this same conversation with the three of you guys next year where we're saying, I wish people weren't so aggressive in taking on risk and that sort of thing. So I just hope that everyone goes about it the right way. Like, I want us all to have a great year in 26, but I want that to continue to 27.
Yeah, it's a little bit of discipline in terms, tempering the excitement and opportunity with still a disciplined approach.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. G, what's your take?
I 100% agree with what Mike, his sentiment. I think that after COVID, 2021 was exuberant. It had that same excitement, and that really led to very aggressive lending parameters, and hence we've seen some distress in floating rate deals over the past few years. And so hopefully we'll take those lessons and be disciplined, but also be very aggressive in, in certain strategies.
Yeah, makes sense. Makes tons of sense. Okay, so I want to end our conversation here just with like a couple, like one word or, quick little soundbite things here. So, G, I'll start with you on this one. What's a topic that you don't think got enough attention at CREFC?
I think binary risk potential with data centers and how life science properties are performing. I did not really hear much about those two product types, and I was really curious and wanted to learn more, and I don't believe that was really discussed at the conference.
Why is that? You think it's just not top of mind for folks, or just not necessarily a topic that usually gets covered in those scenarios?
Data centers, you really have to be a significant lender in order to be active in that space. So various participants can't lend on data centers, but it's such a huge aspect of where commercial real estate is going that I wanted to learn a little bit more. With life science was really in favor a couple of years ago, and the vacancy has really skyrocketed, and there's really not many tenants that can reoccupy those space. And so many of those life science centers will likely be converted back into office. And just talking about what the potential impact could be to recovering office markets, I think could probably have a little bit more attention.
It's huge. Yeah, if anyone's listening to this that's got expertise in life science or in data centers, it'd be a fun conversation. Yeah, it'd be a fun conversation. Mike, I'm curious, anything that you heard that you just felt was like an overused phrase during the conference?
Aside from rain?
Aside from rain.
A real theme. No, I don't. Like, it was, it's interesting. Like, we heard a lot of the same themes over and over again, but they were all positive, but not in a way where you kind of walk away saying like, this seems frothy, right?
Yeah.
I only heard that term once throughout the entire conference, but only from someone saying, this seems real, this doesn't seem frothy. But I don't think no, I didn't. There wasn't one thing where I walked away saying, because in the past, there's always one, right? It's always cautiously optimistic. And like every year, there's just one, the wall of maturities. There was not one theme where I got sick of hearing.
Yeah, that's good though. G, what about you? Anything that kind of tickled your ear as overused?
I didn't hear overused phrases, but I did hear a common theme that back leverage providers were very aggressive in the market and really pushing their clients to go out and originate deals and give them actually more leverage than what they were asking. So that was an interesting theme that I heard on from a few meetings.
Yeah. Did it surprise you?
It did. It did, just because typically leverage providers are a little bit more conservative, but it seems to have gotten pretty aggressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, maybe it's that ability to differentiate or the need just to get things done and kind of moving forward to get a jump start on it. So, okay. Well, one last question for the both of y'all. One word to kind of describe market sentiment.
This is going to sound so generic. Like I knew this was coming because Andy Garrett does not do one of these sessions without summing it up in one word. So I was putting some thought into this, and I'm not super creative, right? The one word that I keep going back to is exciting. And I know that sounds boring, but it just that in every aspect of the 3 days that we were there was a high level of excitement. And I just hope that continues because it felt really good.
It's awesome. I love that. G, what about you?
I had the same sentiment as Mike. I really felt that you could feel this exuberance, but I have a boring word as well.
Well, excitement and exuberance, it's consistency, I guess, then across the both of you. Well, y'all, thank you. I know I was excited and exuberant to have this conversation with you all, and was looking forward to it. So I appreciate the perspective. I appreciate the kind of takeaways from the conference. And, hopefully this just is a great year for commercial real estate, for our clients, for, our partners and for ourselves. So looking forward to it, and let's chat soon. But Mike, G, thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Andy. Thanks, G.
Bye, Andy.
Thanks. Talk soon.
Bye.